Hello, everyone. Welcome to Car Conversations, Episode 9, with your host, Kurt, here. Today, we're going to be talking about student loans and more specifically, how we can prevent ourselves from making the same mistakes that other people have and how to be in a situation financially where we can feel good after coming out of school. So, there are a few main points that we're going to be looking at today. One of them is taking out more student loans than what is actually needed. Most people are actually going to be told what they can take out at their max and not what they should be taking out. This leads to a lot of problems because you're going to have a lot of extra money sitting out there if you take out the maximum amount of student loans that a bank or federal aid will allow you to take. Because of that, a lot of people get stuck in high debt because they spent some of that money on things other than school, and then it takes much longer to pay that back than it actually should. Another thing to be paying attention to is variable rate private loans. So that's coming from a private bank. So this is especially important when the Fed is raising rates, because when we're talking about variable rates in finance in general, that means fluctuating rates. It's not fixed at a certain amount. It will be fluctuating over time. And when the Fed is raising rates, these variable rates will go up. So your debt and interest that you're paying will go up. And this is all going to be happening over time. So in the short term, it might look like a good idea, but based on current market conditions, that doesn't mean anything, because the variable rate can change and you might not be able to pay that debt back in time, and it's going to be fluctuating higher and higher until you can no longer control it sustainably. I think it's important to note that it's likely for most people to have to take out student loans and get some financial help with paying for school, but it's really important to get as many scholarships and grants as possible, because if we can do that, we're really going to help ourselves in the future. It does take some upfront work, but we can really reduce some of those student loans and financial hits that we would be taking if we get that essentially free money from the grants and scholarships out there. There's a lot out there. It takes a lot of searching and work to get them, but it is worth it. And if we can really avoid some of those private banks and that the loans that they have out there, that would be great, because what happens is the federal money that's out there is going to be at a much lower interest rate than what the private sector is. And so what ends up happening if we don't get some of those grants and scholarships and we go over what we can get for the federal student aid, we're going to head into some of those private ones that are extremely expensive and in the long run have an extremely high interest rate. But if we do get some of those private loans that have the higher interest rates, it's important to remember that when we're paying down the debt, that we hit those higher interest rate loans first instead of trying to get the smallest loan balance away, because in the long run, it is the most efficient way to pay down debt. Another important thing to note is that if we can start paying while we're in school on these student loans, it'll help us immensely in the future, because if we take out what we need and we're being efficient, we should have some time on our hands to get a part-time job, maybe on the weekends, maybe sometime in the weekdays, and really start hitting on some of these student loans while we're still in school. And if we can do that, we'll be farther ahead than most people, because we'll be breaking down those debts slowly over time. We'll have a head start, and then once we get a job, we can really start attacking those loans and bringing them down to zero. I just want to drive home those few points that we talked about one last time here. So we talked about making sure that when we are taking out student loans, we are spending those loans on school only, making sure we're not taking out more than we need and spending on other things. We also talked about looking out for those variable rate private loans, and then making sure that we're trying to avoid those, and because over time they could raise into an area where we can no longer afford them. And then also trying to pay down some of these debts while we're in school is extremely important. So if you guys have any questions for me on student loans or any helpful hints for other people, I'd appreciate if you comment down below. And this is Kurt signing off of Car Conversations, Episode 9.